Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and right beside me, I've got Hoops. How you doing?
Doing good for the most part. I will say everything has been pretty much the same. Um, Currently, we're pretty much in the process of, or not process. With this weekend, we have the Labor Day weekend, so a nice little extra day of break, I guess, from work. Definitely nice to have. I would say, aside from that, just trying to keep taking it one at a time and try to spread positivity, I guess.
I like
How
that.
about you?
Same here. I'm excited for Labor Day weekend. I'm excited for this upcoming weekend because not only is it could be my birthday on the 8th, but on Friday we are going to Knott's Berry Farm, which is kind of the reason why we are filming uh, a bit in advance because we're gonna have a very busy weekend next weekend. But no worries. I feel like it's gonna be fun nevertheless because we are continuing our series where we are ranking the best players by position. I guess last week's episode was the point guards, which was surprisingly our lists were very similar. I don't think it'll be the case for this week because
Yeah, I don't so.
as we found out together, coming up with the best 15 shooting guards was very difficult to do. There's just not a lot of like high end talent in this position. So we came up with lists to see how similar they are from each other. And yeah, if you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure you guys subscribe, follow on all uh, podcast platforms because we will be continuing this for the small forwards, power forwards, centers, and this is probably gonna be the weakest position. So from here on out, it's gonna be all up. It's gonna be a lot better. I feel like.
Yeah, I would definitely think so also. That it's probably honestly going to maybe it's gonna be a steep uphill or steep climbing uphill from here, maybe. I feel like maybe it'll go small forward and then possibly power forward even higher and then center even higher. Well, I don't know about center being higher, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But let's focus on the shooting guards for today. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Let's see.
I've got a handful, but like I'm not very passionate about these honorable mentions.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily list any crazy honorable mentions because I didn't think there were very many that were really that good to really be worthy. But if I were to pick and choose, like guys that maybe I considered adding on the list that ultimately didn't make the cut, um, I would say Devin Vassell could have definitely be an honorable mention. Um, I for sure thought about putting him on my list. Ultimately, there were a few other guys that honestly I gave the edge to, so I didn't end up putting them here. Um, or didn't end up putting him here. Another honorable mention, I would say, worthy of an honorable mention could be. Let's see. So here comes the issue again, where like not knowing whether to classify as a shooting guard or small forward and whatnot, stuff like that. Um, like for example, Trey Murphy, the third. I thought about him, but I feel like he's like a flex shooting guard slash small forward. But I guess he
Yeah,
kind of plays shooting guard a little bit more.
I think this is
Um,
a huge issue for like the shooting guard, small forward position because there's so many shooting guards that also play small forward and vice versa. I kind of
yeah,
consider Trey Murphy a small forward, but I could see why you'd say
mhm.
shooting guard.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
It's
that's
really
one of the more
confusing.
difficult part about making these lists for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really confusing because I look at him as a small forward, but then it's like ESPN, for example, lists him as a shooting guard. So like
Yeah,
it's kind of confusing.
I had the same issue with a different player that will I'm gonna put in my small forwards list, which is Jalen Williams. Uh,
Mm.
like I feel like he's he's a
I
small
think of him as
forward. Yeah, but like
yeah.
I've seen so many like publications saying that he's a shooting guard, that he's one of the best shooting guards, and I was like, I is he a shooting guard? I really don't know. Like, there's no consistency within every like publication I check, so it's
Yeah.
very confusing.
Yeah, definitely. But I would say Trey Murphy, definitely an honorable mention. Another guy that I was like kind of unsure about the exact position to list, but I'll put as an honorable mention here, Austin Reeves. I will say worthy of discussion. Obviously, we know what he's capable of doing for playing for our team, the Lakers. Really good young up and rising player. Um, could be like shooting guard slash small forward, but I would say or a point guard even maybe.
More
But
point guard. I don't think he plays small forward, but he is definitely worth conversation because spoiler, I have him on my list. But yeah, is there is the main reason why he's not on your list is just because of like position, like confusion?
um, kind of. But also, I feel like there are some other guys maybe that kind of have more like deserving or whatnot. But at the same time, the confusion of position kind of also factored in a little bit also.
Fair enough. Is that it for your honorable mentions, or do you have any more?
That's it because originally I didn't even list any honorable mentions, quite honestly.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay,
now it's your turn, Memo. Who are your honorable mentions?
I've got a few. Some of the most notable like bucket getters that I didn't add to my list include Bogdan Bogdanovic, Cam Thomas, who's uh, definitely a bucket, but more of a shot chucker than anything. Jordan Clarkson, I thought of as well. Jalen Green, I feel like needs to be a bit more consistent in order to be in the top 15, but he's shown flashes of greatness. And then one more, Dante DiVincenzo, who is great on both ends. Um, it was kind of hard cutting him, but yeah, those are my handful of honorable mentions. Anything surprising from my little group, or
Not really, honestly. I think most of those guys I didn't necessarily have on my list. Um, I did put Jalen Green on my list, but I could understand why you would cut him. So nothing crazy there, I won't say.
yeah, I guess we could have a bigger conversation once we relieve, not relieve, or once we reveal our list. Which should we do that right now? Should we show 15 through 11?
We can go ahead and do that.
All right, let's do that. So we're gonna reveal our list to each other for the first time, 15 through 11. Ooh, okay. Already we whoa.
Very
Okay,
different.
very different. We do not have one player alike. They are all different from each other. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Bradley Beal. So okay, number 15, I got Bradley Beal 14, I got Terry Rozier. 13, Emmanuel Quickly. 12, RJ Barrett. 11, Jalen Green. So I'll start with Bradley Beal, okay? Obviously, very inconsistent last season. And kind of has been like an injury problem also for a few seasons now. But at the end of the day, I couldn't leave him off this list due to his abilities when he is healthy. Like, he has shown how great he could still be when he is on the floor. So I just felt like I had to include him here for that very reason. Obviously, this is not the same Bradley Beal as his very peak prime years in Washington, but still quite a good player when healthy. And then number 14, Terry Rozier. So I think that one thing about Terry Rozier is that a lot of people seem to honestly forget how good this guy could be and like his scoring abilities. Like, he would go on like crazy scoring bursts, and it doesn't really get talked about. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that because he was like a forgotten player in a way. Like, for example, during the Celtics days, he was a sneaky good link when the year when Kyrie and Hayward were out and they somehow made the conference finals with rookie Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, those guys going off. Since then, he hasn't really been talked about on the media like crazy. But I still think he's a sneaky good player when he is healthy. So then the next guy, Emmanuel Quickly, really good player here too. Obviously, he started out with the Knicks and then got traded to the Raptors at not even the trade deadline, but like before the trade deadline, and continued to do great things for a not so good team. So I had to put him on this list. Number 12, I have his teammate, RJ Barrett, who I put over the edge. I think that they're both really good, but I do think RJ is better. So that's why I put him over Emmanuel. Obviously, he was on the Knicks. He was really good. He was thought to be the future for that team. Ultimately, they decided we want to go for even bigger fish to fry, and they ended up trading him for OG, and we all know that was not really a mistake. So doesn't take anything away from him. And then Jalen Green, obviously you mentioned that you had him as an honorable mention, and you felt like he just needs to be a lot more consistent to make your list. Me personally, I just put him on my list because when he has shown his peak capabilities, he has been able to like lead pretty good for the most part. Like last season, when the Rockets kind of like almost found a way to make the play-in tournament in the second half of the season, a lot of it had to do with when Jalen Green was going on his crazy run. Like, he was leading that squad. And I'm not necessarily like a Jalen Green fan, nor a hater, by the way. I'm just kind of like neutral toward this guy. Like, he's all right, I guess. Now, I definitely agree that he is definitely a crazy shot chucker, which he seems to be kind of infamously known for. But overall, I still do think that he is a good player overall, so I decided to list him here. So that's pretty much my overview on 15 to 11. Would you like to talk about my list first or go over your list first?
Yeah, I'll talk about your list first. Bradley Beal, I kind of understand why he's this slow. I have him a lot higher. Just because,
Interesting.
yeah, just because like he did have a injury riddled season, but it was still a bucket, not the same bucket from years ago when he was leading the league in points per game, but he's still a bucket. He could get you 18 whenever. with decent efficiency. And it was his first year in Phoenix. Maybe, it's like a slump year, but we'll see. He is aging. Terry Rozier, I thought was an interesting pick because when he went to the Heat, he kind of fell off a bit. Like, he was doing a lot better when he was with Charlotte. He never really found his footing in Miami, so that's why I never even considered him. And Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, maybe I'm sleeping on them a bit since they're in Canada now. But when they were in the Knicks, they were... Quickley was fine, but, like, RJ Barrett was so inconsistent to the point where, like, in an interview, Carmelo was talking about how RJ is the type of player that would score 31 game and 4 the other. And then after the interview, RJ Barrett did that very same thing. He scored like 30 in one game, and the next game he scored 4. So he is very inconsistent. He has flashes of potential, but I feel like that potential is fleeting away year by year. And Quickly is good, but I feel like it's not as good or as important for a championship team or a playoff team as the players I have in my list. And then once again, Jalen Green did show during the Rockets run towards the end of the season that he could lead a team to the playoffs possibly, but that was such a small sample size. It was like a month of good basketball, while the rest of the year he was just playing like YMCA basketball. He wasn't really like taking it seriously, so that's why I didn't have him on my list. But the players I do have on my list, I don't know if I list them out or not, but I'll list them out just in case. At 15, I have KCP, 14, Malik Monk, 13, Devin Vassell, 12, Tyler Hero, and 11, Anthony Simons. KCP will be going to the Orlando Magic, and we all know that he was a vital piece for two different teams, the Lakers and the Nuggets, for their championship run. He can score 3 when you need him to. He is a high IQ defender, very talented guy. I think he will definitely help the Orlando Magic, and he's definitely a type of player you want on your team if you're trying to make a run. Malik Monk, robbed from Sixth Man of the Year last year. Just due to injuries, he didn't get it, but he is a scoring threat off the bench. He can give you 40 whenever if the team needs it. So that's why I have him here. Devin Vassell, probably one of the, other than Wemby, the only other bright spot there in San Antonio. He is very young, very talented. Let me just pull up the stats because I feel like because of Wemby's height, he's oftentimes forgotten. But this past year, he averaged 19.5 points per game, 4.1 assists per game, 3.8 rebounds per game, 1.1 steals per game, 47.2 field goal percentage, 37.2 3-point percentage in 68 games last year. So there are definitely flashes of a great player within him. I see a lot more potential within Devin Vassell rather than an RJ Barrett or even a Jalen Green at times. I feel like Jalen Green is a little concerning. I feel like he should be a lot better than he is at the moment, but we'll see. Hopefully he proves me wrong. Tyler Hero, he's just a bucket. He could get a bucket whenever, and has shown in the 2020 playoffs when he was he a rookie or a sophomore in that playoff run?
It was a rookie.
Yeah, in his rookie year, he showed that he could be a vital scoring option for a championship team. Unfortunately, due to injuries, he hasn't really shown that again, but I think within the right circumstances, he will once again prove that it could be a important piece to a championship team. And then I have Anthony Simons, again, another bucket. We are talking about shooting guards after all. All these guys are mostly buckets. And yet another guy that I feel like is forgotten since he plays in Portland. They're not really playing real basketball up there either. But he is still pretty good, pretty talented, if I can find his stats. But yeah, I believe he was averaging about like, I got it, 22.6 points per game, 5.5 assists point per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, half a steal per game, 43% field goal percentage, 38.5 field goal percentage. So pretty efficient guy. Can get you 22. Could be the guard of the future for Portland, seeing depending on how Scoot develops. But yeah, I've got a bunch of bucket getters and then KCP in this list, or in this portion of the list. And how do you feel about it? Are any of these further up on your list? Are they completely off?
I will say this: several of them I don't have on my list, and then one guy I have higher. But let me start by mentioning, I guess, a few guys that I probably either could have or potentially even should have listed. Starting with Tyler Hero. Honestly, he was another guy that like I kind of was unsure what position to classify as. Because I know like it's kind of like, because like some list him as a point guard, some list him as a shooting guard, and then he could also play small forward. Am I correct? So
I don't think about point guard, but maybe small forward.
Yeah, because I saw like one site listed him as a point guard, which I didn't think of either, which is confusing. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of like unsure whether he would be a shooting guard or a small forward. I was thinking, since he shoots a lot, maybe shooting guard. He probably should, if anything, at least be like a honorable mention for mine, honestly. And then Malik Monk, I guess he was another guy that like I kind of thought about more as like a small forward initially, as opposed to shooting guard, because I believe he kind of was listed that for a lot of his career. But obviously one of those types where it's like a small forward that shoots a lot, where he can easily also play the two. So definitely, I guess, a guy that I kind of considered but somewhat thought of like as an afterthought here, due to like not knowing which exact position I should list him as. And then KCP, I'm not mad at the pick, but honestly I didn't even think about including him, to be honest. Like, and that's just because like I feel like there's better twos out there that are like either bigger names or I guess higher peak. But like you listing him on there, it's all good. Like I don't have a problem with it. And Fernie Simons, I do have higher though. I will say that. So we'll leave that for later.
All right, fair enough. Should we move on to the next portion of our lists?
Yeah, we can do that. 10 to 6 or 6 to 10.
Yeah, 10 through 6. All right, let's see. Oh. Whoa, okay. This is interesting. So we got like a couple of the same...
A few.
Same players, yeah. Yeah, a few. Alright, and I already have like one issue that I want to bring up, but do you want to list out your guys?
Yeah. So number 10, I have Desmond Bain. Number 9, I have Anthony Simons. Number 8, Zach Levine. Number 7, CJ McCollum. And number 6, DeJounte Murray. So Desmond Bain, obviously, we've seen how he is practically has been the number 2 option on Memphis, like in spurts. Like obviously, he wasn't necessarily the second best player on Memphis, but there has been times where he has stepped up big for them. Like last year when they were so injury riddled, he was a player that did end up getting injured, but there was a bit where he was trying his best to lead the team where he could. So he showed his capabilities, to say the least, is what I'm trying to say. And then Anthony Simons, as you mentioned earlier, he is a sneaky good young link and does tend to be forgotten due to playing on a bad Portland team. But he's shown that he has had like good capabilities in being a scoring machine and all that. So I have to include him here. Zach Levine, I honestly would list him much higher if he was not injury prone last season. Like before the injuries, I would probably at least have top 5, honestly. But just because he was injured, I listed him a little bit lower, but still obviously really good. CJ McCollum, a pretty good shooting guard. He does tend to have some inconsistencies, especially in the playoffs. But overall, I had to list him here due to his ceiling that we have seen. And then number 6, I put DeJounte Murray. You could argue that he should be higher, but I have a few guys that I think are honestly more elite, honestly. And that's why I have him just barely missing the top 5. But clearly, obviously, we all know that what his talents are and what his talents are and what he's capable of. He is a good facilitator, a good shooter, all that, you name it. And now obviously traded to the Pelicans, a team that was already pretty good, just happened to fall short due to like the top Western Conference. That team is definitely set up to potentially go further this year, but with the addition of DeJounte Murray. So overall, that would be my players from 6 to 10.
Okay. First thing I want to say is that I don't have DeJounte Murray on my list because I consider him a point guard. That's kind of the reason why the Hawks didn't work out, because they were playing 2 point guards at the same time who need the ball in their hands to succeed. So I always considered him a point guard. When he was with the Spurs, he was a point guard. And I'm assuming when he goes to New Orleans, he's going to be playing point guard since they don't really have a point guard. CJ McCollum was kind of their point guard, and I don't think he was the best at it. In fact, I'm surprised seeing CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, and even Zach Levine all above Desmond Bain. I have Desmond Bain a lot higher because we've seen this guy be the second best player on a really, really good Grizzlies team. Like when they were like the second seed in the West, he was up there with Ja Morant, scoring buckets like crazy with great efficiency. And even last year, when the Grizzlies weren't having their best season, he was playing amazing basketball, even within the short amount of games that he played. He had 23.7 points per game, 5.5 assists per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, a steal a game, 46.4 field goal percentage, 38.1% from 3. He can shoot it from 3 with ease. He is a bucket, like many of these guys are. And I think a more important bucket at that, because unlike Anthony Simons, who have similar numbers, Desmond Bain is actually like helping a team win games, not Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons, as a first or second option, is playing for one of the worst teams in the league. Same could be said for Zach LaVine, who on paper should be a lot higher, but due to injuries, he just haven't has not been able to he has not been able to play for a bit, and his stock has been getting lower, even though he is a dynamic scorer, one of the most athletic guys in the league. He is an underrated shooter as well. I believe he's one of the few people that surpassed that like long time Kobe record with most threes in a game. I believe he had like 13 in a game once. So at his peak, Zach LaVine should be higher, but at the moment his stock is low. Even though I have him pretty high on my list, I do think Desmond Bain is better than Zach LaVine. And then CJ McCollum, like we saw him play trash in the playoffs. He's not the CJ McCollum from the Trailblazers days. He's not at that level. So again, another player I'd put below Desmond Bain. I think Desmond Bain is a little underrated, I guess. But yeah, let me go over my list. At number 10, maybe a little high. Maybe a little high, but I have Bradley Beal. Number 9, I have Austin Reeves. Maybe a little biased, but who cares? 8, I have CJ McCollum. 7, I have Alex Caruso. And 6, I got Zach LaVine. I got Bradley Beal in this position. He's difficult. He really is, because he's so annoying with his large contract. But if we like ignore that, he still is an efficient scorer. He could get you a bucket when you need him to, and that's kind of like his bread and butter. That's what he's made his career off of. So I still think he's really talented. I just don't think he's worth the money he's earning, and maybe that's why a lot of people don't consider him a top 10 shooting guard. Austin Reeves, I feel like is a bit underrated, because maybe his averages aren't as good as like a Devin Vassell, a Tyler Hero, but when we need like a bucket getter in the clutch, Austin Reeves will be there. Like, he has shown time and time again that he'll do anything in order to save the Lakers from losing a vital game. And yeah, he is a capable scorer, a capable passer. He obviously setting up for players like LeBron and Anthony Davis. And the fact that he's been able to get a bucket with those two on the same court as him is pretty impressive. I still have CJ over him, even though part of me wants to put him even lower. But, you know, he was given the short end of the stick there in New Orleans by being their, like, quote-unquote point guard in a way, because he was the only guy capable of handling the ball, but that's not, like, his position. That is not what he thrives in. So I think maybe CJ McCollum will do better next year, now that DeJounte Murray will be handling the ball handling duties. Alex Caruso, I don't know if he's on your list or not, but I think he's a confusing player, because I don't know if he's considered a point guard or a shooting guard.
I always thought he was a point guard, honestly. So no, I don't have him on my list, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw a site that considered him a shooting guard, and I kind of just wanted to praise him as much as possible. So I added him to the list.
I must say this, though. Obviously, very huge fan of Caruso, but I didn't consider him as a shooting guard, because is he really that well known for his shooting? Like, not really, right?
Well, he's an underrated shooter, I would say. Like, he
Yeah.
He is a solid 3 and D guy at his position. Most known for the D part, like he is in
Right.
all defense conversations every year. He's probably the best, maybe behind Derek White, as the best guard defender in the league. But the shooting
I think
part, he's actually
definitely.
very underrated.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. Like I always thought of him as more as like a defensive specialist and not as much known for his shooting. Like obviously he's an underrated shooter, but because he's not really known for his shooting, that's why I kind of thought of him as like more of a 1 than a 2. But obviously like I guess he's a little bit of a flex here that like kind of confusing, misleading.
Yeah,
Um,
he shot the 3 point ball at a great efficiency at almost 41% from three, which is really good. And
yeah.
I had a conversation, or I had like a back and forth with this commenter on our TikTok, because I made a TikTok on why the Bulls were stupid for trading Caruso for Giddy, and he was saying how Giddy's a capable 3 point shooter. He can pass the ball. All Alex Caruso can do is defend, which is not true. Like if you watch him play, he can get you buckets. He can shoot threes at an efficient rate. He might not be averaging 20 points, but do you want a Tyler Hero on your team or an Alex Caruso on your team who will hustle for every loose ball, who will deflect the ball as much as possible, who will get a bunch of steals, defend the best guard on the other team, and still give you like a few 3 pointers, 10 to 15 points a game? I would rather have Caruso on the team, honestly. Um, but that's just me, I guess. So that's why I have him like ridiculously high when you compare it to players like, I don't know, Bradley Beal, Anthony Simons, Devin Vassell, who would score like double his amount. But I think his defensive ability is so elite that I had to put him on my list. And then right above him, I do have his former teammate Zach Levine, who I've already mentioned. He's an underrated, I feel like at this point, scorer. It's just his contract is so abysmal that nobody wants him at the moment. But when healthy, he is a very talented scorer, and he would be a fantastic piece for a championship team if he was like the third best player, or maybe like second scoring option. Not the number one guy, but around that realm. So those are my guys. Anybody that you feel like should be lower, that should be higher? What do you think?
um, I mean, I kind of mentioned a lot already. Bradley Beal lower. Um, for dimensions, the reasons that I mentioned earlier, inconsistency, injury prone, all that stuff. I still do like Bradley Beal. Obviously, don't like him on the Suns, but then again, like I feel like the Suns for sure definitely did give up too much to get him, which kind of made it. I feel like the fact that the Suns overpaid to get him is making him look overrated, even though really it's not his fault per se.
I
It's the
think
Suns' dumb.
that's the issue. I feel like.
Yeah, but I do think that you definitely ranked him a little bit too high, though, for sure. But then again, like it's your opinion, your list, my list, my opinion, my list. So like, who am I to like get mad at you? But I'm just saying, like me personally, I do believe it's a little bit high. Like if this list was made in even like 2021, I think that for sure Bradley Beal would be in the top 10. Um, 2024, I just feel like he's a little bit too up and down for me to list him that high. So that's why I personally would have him a little bit lower. Um, some of the other guys you listed, I'm obviously huge fans of as well, like you. I mean, Austin Reeves and Alex Caruso. Um, Current Laker, former Laker, did great things for us, doing great things for us. Um, but yeah, obviously, I already mentioned to you my issue was that I didn't know which exact position to list them. Um, like Austin Reeves, I didn't know whether he should be like a 1 or a 2. Same for Caruso. Like I always thought of him as a 1 more than a 2. But obviously, huge fans of both of them. Definitely, I think would be worthy of being on this list. For whatever reason, I low key didn't really even think about them too much because I don't think of them as shooting guards. But definitely, I think they're better overall players than some of these other guys on the list for sure. Um, so I'm not mad at you for ranking them up there. There may be some guys on your list, as you mentioned, like Vassell, that are like bigger, high volume scorers than them, that maybe could be potentially better players, but I would say it's a close call, honestly. Like Austin and Alex, they can do stuff in so many ways that are not shown in the box score. Like, for example, Caruso, you look at the box score and you're like, oh, this guy only scored 6 points this game and had 2 assists and 1 steal. But then, like, he does so many things that are not shown in the box score that all that is so misleading. Like, if you actually watch the games, you know his impact a lot better than when you only do box score watching, which unfortunately is an issue with a lot of those casual NBA fans. They don't watch games, they only look at box scores. So then they think certain players are really good just because of box score watching, or they think certain guys are really bad because of box score watching. But that's why I think those guys are underrated. Um, so I'm not mad at them being on this list. Um, I do agree with you that Zach LaVine for sure should be much higher if he was not injury prone, and that's probably why both of us have him this low. And CJ, we have him ranked almost about the same, except obviously I list him in front of a few guys that you probably think should be higher, and then maybe vice versa. I don't know. Yeah, I think that the thing with CJ is that he does tend to be really good in the regular season, but kind of does disappear a little bit in the playoffs. So hard for him to be any higher than where we put him. But overall, I think your list does have a few sneaky good guys, to say the least.
And same with yours for sure. But should we finally reveal our top 5 shooting guards in the NBA?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Alright. I
Um,
feel like. Actually, I'm curious about who you have, actually. I was gonna say maybe
yeah,
they're the same, but.
there might be like the same issue of not knowing the player position listings. That's the issue. But aside from that, there probably will be a lot of similar ones.
Oh.
I would think.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I should have
I think
seen this
there are
coming,
many.
honestly.
Yeah, honestly, not too far off. Um, so number 5, I have James Harden. So I kind of talked about this last video. There is a little bit of I guess, somewhat unclearness of whether to list him as a point guard or a shooting guard because early in his career he was more of a shooting guard, but now he's kind of more of a point guard. Um, Me personally, I always thought of James Harden as a shooting guard because of how much he shoots the ball. So I decided to put him on this list. Obviously, I've mentioned it several times in the past. I'm not a very big James Harden fan whatsoever. Don't like his playing style, free throw merchant, all that. Complains of the refs, you name it. But you can't deny the fact that he is still a bucket getter, regardless of how he gets them. So on the last video, he would have been an honorable mention for point guards. On this video, I have him on my top 5. Um, Number 4, I have Devin Booker. Okay, so the thing about Devin Booker is I feel like his ceiling could be quite high, and he could arguably be higher on the list. But ultimately, I feel like these other guys here have honestly done more than him. And honestly, the thing with Book is that he kind of like, I mean, we've seen him like have kind of like choked playoff performances when it mattered most for the Suns. Like, for example, the Game 7 versus the Mavs is the most infamous one when the whole entire team collapsed. Obviously, overall, he's still a really good player, though, so definitely have to be worthy of being in the top 5 for sure.
I wouldn't
Right
say
above him.
he uh, didn't accomplish as much as the other guys go, though, because other than Jaylen Brown, he's the only other guy that's been to the finals, and that's like was the number one guy to lead them to the finals. We can't say the
Yeah,
same for the others.
I'm gonna say this. Maybe that didn't accomplish as much thing wasn't necessarily accurate. Um, Maybe I should have used like a different term per se. Um, that I don't know. We'll see. I would just say that he shows a lot more inconsistencies than the other guys. To me, maybe that's what I'll say. Anyhow, right above him, I have Donovan Mitchell. I feel like him and Book's playing style is like kind of similar-ish, but overall, I put Mitchell a little bit higher just because I feel like his peak is honestly a little bit better. I think he obviously could show like a little bit of anger issues sometimes, but I don't think his ego is quite as bad as Book's. So that was one of another partial reason why I kind of thought Donovan Mitchell should be higher, honestly. Okay, now number 2, I have Jaylen Brown, and maybe a little bit high, but I do definitely give him credit for like this past playoff run. Obviously, ended up winning the Finals MVP. A lot of times, he was the number one guy for the Celtics, not Jason Tatum. So that definitely proves to a lot of people like who's number one, who's number two. Maybe it's this guy, honestly. And I personally do think Jaylen Brown is better, to be honest. And that Team USA was really wrong for keeping him off the roster, which he had a right to be mad. And talent wise, I think probably Donovan Mitchell is better than him. But Jaylen Brown obviously just has seemed to have shown up a little bit more when it mattered most in the playoffs. So got to give him the edge there. But number 1 for sure has got to be Anthony Edwards. And this one is just purely due to the talent abilities. Obviously, he hasn't necessarily gone as far as some of these guys below him. But this season, I think he made a massive leap. His game got like massive improvements. Obviously, he still has flaws to his game and some also inconsistencies here and there as well. But did really good this season. Was a pretty good leader as well, able to take his team all the way to the conference finals. And I'm sure they can honestly get right back there if they can continue the continuity going into the following season. Anyhow, I believe that would be the main reason why I have Anthony Edwards as the number 1 shooting guard in the league today. Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I guess starting with James Harden, who I don't have on my list because I consider him a point guard. If I did consider him a shooting guard, I think of my. I think that area makes sense. Like, I would have Desmond Bain over James Harden, but James Harden is debatably better than Murray, is debatably better than McCollum, is debatably better than Levine. At least for his skill set. He's not the scorer he once was. So I don't expect him to outscore Zach LaVine if they're both matched up against each other now. But he's a much better passer than LaVine is. And so, yeah, I don't mind this placement, I guess. What I do mind is the Devin Booker one, which probably I shouldn't mind that much since I have him one spot above yours. But, I thought I was crazy for putting him at 3. You put him at 4? I I don't like Devin Booker. I would never defend this
I
man.
You were going to put him lower, honestly.
I would never defend this man at all, but he is such a talented scorer. He is so good. Even yes, he does have his lapses in the playoffs. Obviously, Game 7 against the Mavs was not great, and this last playoff run was not the best either. But I've seen him torch the Lakers like crazy in the playoffs. Like, the man sometimes seems like he could never miss from the mid-range. He is an amazing mid-range shooter, an amazing three-point shooter. Because of the lack of point guard in Phoenix, he ended up becoming a much better ball distributor as well. He's also a decent defender. Not the best, but a decent defender at that. So I believe he should be over a Jaylen Brown, which props to him for winning Finals MVP. But when you compare him with past Finals MVP, he is so much weaker compared to Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, Stephen Curry. Like, if you compare the stats with each other, it's not a normal Finals MVP. He might be the worst Finals MVP since Chauncey Billups, honestly. And he earned the Finals MVP, but it's not because he played like a superstar. It's because his whole team is filled with all-star caliber players, it feels like at times. And he just did slightly better than Tatum, that he ended up getting the Finals MVP. Still a capable scorer, great defender. I saw him lock up Luka several times during the finals, which is very impressive since we all know he is the best scoring guard in the league. But I won't take him over Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker is just so elite at shooting the ball, while Jaylen Brown, similar to Jason Tatum, isn't really elite in anything. He's just really good at a lot of things, which I feel like is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And then
so I'm gonna kind of have a little bit of a counter against that. I definitely get where you're coming from with all those things you're saying about how elite of a shooter Book is, and how I guess inconsistent a little bit Jaylen Brown is. But overall, I do believe Jaylen Brown is definitely more of a balance all around. His defense versus Book's defense, I think for sure Jaylen Brown's defense is better. So
it's better, but I wouldn't say it's by much. Again, I feel like Devin Booker is an underrated defender, and during intense or more what's the word, vital moments, he has showed in the playoffs and in this Olympic run as well that he could be a very, very good defender when he's needed to be. So I'll say Jaylen Brown is a better defender, but Devin Booker is a better shooter. He's also a better playmaker, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will say this: the one issue, obviously, that we kind of mentioned is mostly the inconsistency part. Then again, obviously, because Jaylen Brown has a better team, but doesn't necessarily need to do as much, just like Tatum doesn't need to do as much. So there's that. Overall, I can see your arguments being made. But I'm gonna stick with what I said, honestly.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but honestly, I am shocked to hear your arguments for for Booker, knowing how big of a non-fan you are of his, though. Not gonna lie.
I let my bias show from time to time, but like I do try my best to be as unbiased as possible. Uh, Even though it's hard for me sometimes. Uh, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I guess I don't really have much of an issue other than Jaylen Brown being a bit higher on your list. But yeah, let me go over my list. I have Desmond Bain at 5, which I kind of went over. When the Grizzlies are good, he is the second best player on a very, very great team, just right behind Ja Morant, up there, getting his buckets with them. Um, yeah, very efficient. He's great. He's great. Uh, so 5 Desmond Bain, 4 Jaylen Brown, 3 Devin Booker, 2 Donovan Mitchell, and 1 Anthony Edwards. So we have the same number 1. I think Ant maybe it's a little premature since Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown and or not Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker have done a lot in this league. They've showed they are 2 of the best shooting guards in the league, and Anthony Edwards is just like starting to pop off. But he has loads of potential. I feel like he's already better defenders than both of them. He could win you a playoff game even if his shot is not going down. He could step up in many other ways, whether it's the playmaking, whether it's the defense. So that's why he's my number 1. And then I guess the argument for Donovan Mitchell over Devin Booker, I would say Devin Booker is probably the better defender, and maybe a better shooter. But Donovan Mitchell, I think is a better scorer, like on all 3 levels. Because of his athleticism, he could get to the rim a lot better than Devin Booker, and is shooting from mid range and 3 isn't that far off from Devin Booker. His playmaking as well is a little underrated. So I feel like his playmaking is around the same realm as Devin Booker. But yeah, I just think offensively, Donovan Mitchell does have the edge. And although defensively, maybe it's Booker, it's not by much. So because of the offensive edge, I gave it to Mitchell over Devin Booker. But if you told me Devin Booker was the second best shooting guard in the league, I wouldn't blame you. Like part of me would cringe because I don't like him, but it does make sense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So I definitely do have Mitchell higher than Booker, but I'm not gonna lie. When you made all those arguments, it kind of sounded like you were pretty much saying that Booker is better. You're pretty much saying Booker is a better shooter. Booker is a better defender.
I was talking about Jaylen Brown.
Donovan.
Oh, no. I get what you mean.
Now.
I get what you mean. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like the way you said it made it sound like everything was that Booker was better, and then ultimately added. But I do think that Mitchell is a better scorer.
Well, it's very, very close. Like they are. I guess not similar playing wise, but they are like a similar level. I feel like.
Yeah, they are. And I do think that I honestly did have made the connection in the past, like 2020, 2021 season, when the Jazz was the 1 seed and the Suns were the 2 seed. I saw that those 2 teams are very similar, like the way they were built. Like, obviously the elite point guard, and then a lot of shooters on the team, a pretty good center, all that. Like that Suns team and that Jazz team was pretty similar. Ultimately, the Suns team ended up making further to the finals, but we all know, ended up choking. But yeah. Point is, I do agree that Mitchell is better than Booker, even though some of the points you said made it seem like as if Booker was better.
No, I'm just explaining how close they are. But yeah, I mean, again, if you want to say Devin Booker is better, I don't blame you, but or anybody, but I I think offensively it's where Donovan Mitchell is like a tier better.
Yeah.
He also had the more impressive 70-point game. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Agreed on that. I mean, like, he actually had to work more for like hard fought baskets in a close game, correct?
Uh huh.
Versus Books was more a little bit of stat padding because they're
Seth
already
Curry.
losing and the game was over. So yeah, I definitely agree on that one. The more impressive 70-point performance. Yeah.
But yeah, anything else you want to talk about, or is that it for our lists?
I think that's about it for our list. This list. So obviously we talked about how last video our lists were pretty similar. This video our lists
Oh,
were quite
they
different.
were
Aside
so
from like
different.
the top five or top four, not top five, top four, we were like similar, but I think there's somewhat different sequences. Aside from that, everything was like very different for the most part.
Very,
Aside from the
very different.
aside from like the yeah, aside from CJ McCollum being almost the same rank and Zach Levine not being far different ranks for each and those two, but overall a much more um, different list here than the point guards where we actually agreed with every player being in the list but just different rankings. But that's what makes this series interesting, to see our different ways of thinking.
Yeah, this might
And
the players might not be that interesting, but maybe this episode is more interesting than last since our we had different opinions for a lot of these.
yeah. But anyhow, I guess we can go over our lists one time as a whole now that we made our comparisons.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do that. So, who are your top 15 NBA shooting guards for this upcoming season?
so for the upcoming season, the top 15 shooting guards I listed at number 15 was Bradley Beal, 14 Terry Rozier, 13 Emmanuel Quickley, 12 RJ Barrett, 11 Jalen Green, 10 Desmond Bain, 9 Anthony Simons, 8 Zach Levine, 7 CJ McCollum, 6 DeJounte Murray, 5 James Harden, 4 Devin Booker, 3 Donovan Mitchell, 2 Jaylen Brown, and at number 1 I got Anthony Edwards. That is my top 15 shooting guards today.
All right, and for me, at number 15, I have Kentavious Caldwell Pope, 14 Malik Monk, 13 Devin Vassell, 12 Tyler Hero, 11 Anthony Simons, 10 Bradley Beal, 9 Austin Reeves, 8 CJ McCollum, 7 Alex Caruso, 6 Zach Levine, 5 Desmond Bain, 4 Jaylen Brown, 3 Devin Booker, 2 Donovan Mitchell, and at number 1, I of course have Anthony Edwards. So those are our top 15 lists, are respectfully. Let us know what we got wrong, what we got right. I'm sure this would be a great conversation to have. So let us all know. And yeah, I think that's it for us. Um, if you like the episode, like it. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment, subscribe if you like what you're watching. If you are on podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a follow. That would be great. Maybe even a 5-star rating. That would be extra nice. And follow our socials. I'll definitely be making a couple TikToks related to these episodes, so look out for that. And yeah, anything you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, per usual, thank you guys for the constant support to our channel. Couldn't go, couldn't have been where we are today without you guys. Obviously, constantly trying to find ways to grow for a new channel still. Just about to reach the 1 year mark and entering season 2. definitely been enjoying the journey. We've had our bumps in the road, I guess, when certain things didn't go the way we planned. But overall, like anything, there's going to be learning curves. So we're grateful for everything we go through, and a lot of the contributions could not have been done without you guys' support. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy our content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. As mentioned earlier and several times, we will be continuing this series. Next episode will be for the small forwards. And then we will be going for the top 15 power forwards for going into this season. And then we will conclude with the top 15 centers going into this season. And then after that, we got some other fire content ideas to go over, be following. And then probably right after that, it will just about be the NBA preseason. And we will then add a little twist, like covering preseason overview, headlines, and then I'm sure we'll come up with something else that is creative and entertaining for you guys. So make sure you guys stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
For sure. But that's it for us. We'll see you all next week. Goodbye.